Good afternoon, everybody, once again. So I'm back again, and this time I'm privileged to moderate a session on one of the most talked about topic that is around solving for the new internet users on mobile. And today, uh, it's my pleasure to introduce a distinguished panel who has joined me to have a conversation on this session. Starting with, we have Ashish, who is the CEO at Little Rides from Kenya. Uh, we have Saksham, who is the co-founder and CEO of RHEO TV. And we have Anish, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mitron TV. So before we start, a quick background about what they and their team do and what they are solving for. So at Little Rides, Ashish and team essentially solving for a Pan-African mobility platform, building on that, and obviously serving cities across Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, and Tanzania. And essentially, what they and team are trying to do is that how they harness the power of the technology to offer a safer, trusted, and reliable and cost-effective rides, commute experiences to the end users across these African cities. We have Saksham, and again, Saksham and team at RHEO are essentially building a game streaming platform. They're democratizing the gaming experience to make it more of a professional gaming as well as a mainstream career option for many, many users in India by building an entertainment ecosystem that drives engagement as well as monetization, right? And essentially, they are on a mission to bring gaming into the same league as that of cricket and Bollywood, which is followed like a religion in India. And then finally, we have Anish, who is the co-founder and CTO at Mitron TV, which is a short video platform, high potential, high growth startup for next generation users, designed for people to showcase their innovative videos. And again, following on that content to commerce cycle for the new or the next billion internet users. So, without wasting any of the time, we straight away move on to the conversation. And so, my first question again, that's how we would like to start off, since the topic is about new internet users. And I think we also have Amit joined here. Okay, so I think let's start with the question. So, essentially, guys, when we talk about new internet user, what do you all feel from your perspective? What is the persona of these new internet users on mobile, right? From each of your perspective and each of your business and markets which you are really focusing on. And the part two of the question is, are new internet users market agnostic, person agnostic, or there are anything specifics which each of you focus on when you're building this product for those set of users? So why don't we start with Ashish first?
Thank you, Priyam. It's an opportunity for us to discuss that what we are doing here, and I feel delighted to be part of this meeting. Okay, so what we understand exactly from the people, those are new user basically, because internet is evolving, changing, from megabyte to gigabyte, then 2G to 5G, from web browsing to web hosting, teleconferencing to web conferencing. It is from simpler to complex happening day by day. And we need to know that who these users are. So when we were forming the company in 2016, we found that there are problems, and there are problems those are there, and there are companies those are solving those problems, but still the users are not getting that what they are looking for. So there was a huge need of understanding exactly what these users are looking for. So knowing your customer is quite a demand at that point of time. So we crafted a company in 2016, and we said, like, let's do the ride hailing and find three big problems and see that how we can solve these problems. So one of the problem was that how do we ensure that customer should be safer when they are moving with us, and then second one, that we found that even drivers earning is one of the essential portion of this entire ecosystem. So how do we ensure that the driver should get a good amount of income with us? And the third was vocal for local. People talk about globalization, but let's make it vocal for local first and understand the local needs. And slowly, gradually, what we have seen that when we crafted a product, people were answering about it. And then we segmented these users, that who are the regular users, what their demands are, what kind of curiosity that they have, and what is the motivation and desire in these users, why they are coming to us. When we started knowing and we started making different cohorts and different funnels, and we found like there are different behavior patterns which are coming, and it is specific to the market. So market was also playing a strong role, because sometime market was playing like monopoly, where there is a big player. Then all of a sudden, where more players are coming and more offerings are happening, then it become oligopoly. And slowly, gradually, we're seeing that there are different nature of market is coming within those 5 to 6 years. So we said like the behavior of the customer is also changing, and the new users those are coming are still trying to interacting with us, but they are still finding difficulties because they're not getting the real offering, which is very relevant to their use. So slowly, gradually, we contoured and we found that let's do this something which is very cohesive in nature, and we started giving the ride hailing towards the mobility, and then from mobility, as we speak today, we are a lifestyle and super app kind of platform, where we have everything, which is basically from delivery to food to fintech and all. So what we understood in this entire conversation in totality, that these customers are there and they're more or less same as the old customer, but need to know them, that who they are, what their desire is, what their motivation is. And as a company, if you tap that information, you find that it's a profound earning in terms of knowing the customer, and profound earning in terms of knowing the revenue generation as a company or as a business. Yeah.
Got it. No, I think this really talks about how you have really deep dive to really figure out the persona of your set of users who are essentially mostly new to internet users in a region or a continent like Africa, and really accordingly catering to their needs and with having a minimum learning curve there. So from Ashish, we move to Saksham, and again, how he and team at RHEO sees this persona of new internet users on mobile from his side.
Thanks, Priyam, for the opportunity. So I would like rather to link this particular question to the major question: know your user. And if you are building something for India, the best way to understand your user is just go and become the member of 50 different WhatsApp group of your particular category, and then explore those sections. And I mean that's the best way to get to the closer to your to your community and how they behave and everything. And even if you realize, like, if you are the part of the WhatsApp group, and then if you have given the time, those WhatsApp groups also keep evolving from time to time. So, this is especially become very, very critical if you are building something in the content business, unlike if you are building for the utility or any of the other products. And even and this becomes very critical for the content business, because the maturity of the audience also evolves with time. And that's also just not with the new internet user, but also has, and you can see that particular trajectory even in the at the global stage as well. Like when you start consuming content on the internet, it's mostly very shallow content, and as the curiosity grows, you start consuming more and more depth content, right? So, and why I'm saying about the differentiating between the content as well as and the utility to products, because in the content business you have the persona of the user is totally different from the reason to reason, as well as the and it's just not about the reason but also how you are consuming the content. Let's take example of Savan when I was there, and w- and just differentiate between the behavior of the user from North India to the South India. If you are a part of any of the region from the North India, be it Gujarat or Punjab, then the Hindi comes in default, right? And the people used to consume the content just not in their regional language, but also in the Hindi. So even though you have not selected Hindi, we used to have the feed where it used to come the content in the Hindi language as well. But if you are building for the southern part of the country, then the content needs to be only in their own language. So that is something very critical. The another, but this is totally different for the utility product. The all you have to do is basically to have the context and build the trust upon the user, and it should be something which is actually useful for them. Yeah.
Got it. Now from Saksham, we move on to Anish as they're building the short video platform. How do they see at the persona of these new internet users?
Yeah, so thank you, Priyam, for the opportunity, and hello to everyone who have joined the session. This is understanding of user is something which we will always be doing, and every one of us. It is not a thing which you do in the beginning, or thing which you do at when you reach a certain level. This is something which you have to continuously do. Now, in the content space. The biggest problem for us was that when you talk about new internet users, these are also varied across different age groups or different personas. So these are not just the audiences who are buying smartphone. I mean, these are always the users who are buying smartphone for the first time. Now, because of the entire situation, whether it is the penetration that WhatsApp has got into the market, or the penetration that Paytm had because of demonetization, and again because of the entire COVID situation, the more and more people have become dependent upon technologies. So here what we see is that the new internet user age distribution is varied across all the age groups. And at Mitro, what we have seen is that users who fall into the age group of 25 plus are they hold the maximum percentage of new internet users for us. So these are the users who have never onboarded anywhere else but are coming and using some of these applications for the first time. So that is a behavioral difference which we have seen in this space. When you talk about new internet users, generally the trend used to be 13 to 18 years of was the age group when people were switching into and trying to utilize this kind of applications and using and we were calling them as the new internet user. So that is one trend change which we have seen. Another trend change, obviously, when you look into the geographical distribution of these users, then obviously they would be coming from all over the places and all over the country. Now, in the content domain, the basic demand from each one of these would be that the content should be as per their requirement. Now, when we talk about the requirement, there are two things to understand. One is the language in which they are able to read and understand the language, but you will seldom find applications like this who are very much vocal about how you have to do the things. The
Right,
icons and all of those things have to be self-explanatory. So it is not about the app translation per se, but it is always about the content. Now, if you divide the content, then it is about two things. One is their interest, and when you talk about persona, then the interest also becomes very important, and that is where at Mitro we started with categories, and we started building with working with communities. And we see communities as twofold. For a creator it is a skill based community, and for a viewer it is an interest based community. And the whole of our energy goes into making sure that the interactions between this community starts happening, because if we have solved the problem for communities, then they are going to stick together, and
right.
the suggestions and the interactions around it become very easier for us. And that also helps us in deciding the product development roadmap also, because we measure interactions among and the growth of these categories inside the application, and how exactly the communities are interacting between them. So that is how we have divided.
Right. So what we understand is that the communities are essentially two parts to it. One is the user-centric community, which is interest-led or interest-based, which obviously fits into the persona. And also there's a creator community, right, which is primarily skill-based, right? So very, very insightful into how you look at user communities and the personas. So as a segue to that, and we'll start from you, Anish, this time, is that while we are building for these new internet users, what are the things as a product or builder or a product platform you take care of, right? For example, when you look at things like identity, email versus number, localization, how do you look at localization for building? As I said, many of these users need to have a very minimum learning curve. So how you and team at Mitroa have been looking at it and building for it, specifically areas around identity, localization, or something else for these kind of users?
Yeah. So obviously, one way to understand your users is to get some sort of identity from them, and that is why you use various social logins and things like that, so that the ease of onboarding, there is less friction in onboarding process overall, and you want to do a go always go ahead with a single click sign up kind of a ecosystem. So So that is what we also started with, and we also had Facebook and Google as the primary login criteria. But what we realized over time is that people do not want to share their email addresses. The reason for this, what we understood from users, is that these are social profiles which are still private to them, and what they understand, the belief which they have is that I might be giving sharing more information that needed when I'm giving access to somebody through Google or Facebook, essentially. However, on the contrary, people are very okay to share their phone number with users, and that is probably because of the all these users are actually users who are using WhatsApp, and they are used to communicating over and sharing phone numbers to on other applications, or using applications who are just using relying on their phone numbers. So that was one learning which we saw, and that is where our journey also with Truecaller started, when we integrated Truecaller as the primary source for mobile based logins. And as expected, we saw a change in the overall sign up numbers which we were seeing. The overall signups increased, and also we saw, as of now, while we speak, almost 55% of the signups happen through mobile numbers only, and we have seen almost 30% increase in number of signups. And that was only via adding phone number as another option for signups. So that is one thing. So when you ask about how we look into this users and how we design the product roadmap, the only thing is that the initial onboarding has to be minimum. So users should be they should be able to understand what exactly they need to do, and when exactly you're creating the prompts for them, that becomes very critical for us. So we measure those interactions, and we measure the drop off points obviously, we are in a content format. There is no specified funnel for us. But we create multiple funnels internally. So, and each of these funnels have a conversion event. And if we are seeing a drop off from a particular event, then we know that something is not right. The particular interaction is broken, or the flow is broken, and we just then try to include prompts or some kind of in-app nudges and things like that with various users, and then see whether we are able to solve that for the users or not. And while doing so, we try to do it by becoming language agnostic, because if language is becoming the problem, that means we are going into app translation, and that means the product in the first place itself is not intuitive, and you have to be verbose about what needs to be done. So that is a thought process which we follow, that the content should be available in across different languages, but your interaction in the product should not depend upon the language of the application.
Got it. Now, that's a very interesting insight. And the first insight which you said, that the moment you shifted from social email logins to phone number based logins powered by Truecaller, you saw, like, in a short span of time, 55% of your login signups move to mobile number. So which also gives a conclusion that there was already an inherent behavior or expectation from the user that, hey, phone number and identity is probably a more preferred mode of interacting, or as a first step with a product like yours, and that's why in a short span of time you saw mobile number contribute almost more than half of your onboarding process powered by Truecaller. So from moving from you to Anish to Saksham here. So again, building for these new users, what kind of localization aspects you and team have been looking like, right? And again, it's very too easy to say that, hey, it's just language localization, or is it something else, or is it UI UX localization? So what are those two or three things which you and team have been focusing on while building for this persona, which is the essentially new internet users, and building this gaming and entertainment ecosystem around that?
Yeah, so identification and localization is something which varies from product to product. So somebody can actually argue that if you have seen almost all these contents, like be it the TikTok or Miso or Mitro, it's best way to get the users as soon as possible to the content in itself, and then experience the content so that the user learn by themselves what is the product all about, right? And so there is a minimal drop off. We were with the hypothesis of something similar, but in our case, the live streaming is something which where people were very new to the concept in itself, and then they didn't know like what is it all about. So in the onboarding section, we have to do something different, and so that the user can be educated by themselves. So we experimented a lot with that. So what actually helped us in increasing our D1 retention itself is fixing the onboarding. So instead of directly getting the user to the live stream in itself, we have like two-way step process. In the first one, what we did, we started faking some of the content which is very definite about the live stream itself. For example, watching. We, as soon as the user landed, we saw them as FOMO kind of thing. Like they are like 10,000 people are watching the content right now. Just go and then enjoy the gaming content with the other gamers. And then we took the name as well as the phone number. That actually gave them the context. Oh, like this is something live, and the importance of the live watching live content is the watching, like how many people are watching it together, right? Instead of the POD content. That helped us. Then of course the some of the other facts comes in the like how much it is localized as per the language in itself. What actually helps in for content, of course, it needs to be localized in there. Otherwise, the content itself is of zero value, right?
Right.
But even if you see in the utility products, for example, Paytm, Flipkart, what amazed me, like even for the Flipkart, if you see the English language comes as the last one, but the all the regional language comes in the priority order of your geolocation, right? Because this helps you build the trust among the local audience, because these are the first time users who has never used these digital products for their own convenience, but this when they say something in their own language, that helps you to bring the trust of these first time internet user. Yeah.
Right. So one is obviously one insight is that the onboarding is you essentially leveraged on FOMO, right? Fear of missing out of
Yeah.
that. Hey, like these many people are already watching as potential peers. That's one. And second thing is also giving them an instant education on what to
Correct.
expect rather than dropping them into a live stream arena and they're trying to figure out what to do. Where am I?
Yeah, correct, correct. Yeah,
Yeah. So from moving on from you to Ashish, and again, since you and team are focusing across different African markets, like while people may say Africa is one, indeed it is one, but then do you see different behavioral thing when we are localizing the products, right, from Kenya to Ghana to Zambia and many more places which you guys are focusing on as a ride hailing platform, and again more on top of that. So what has been your 2 3 observations which you would like to share with the audience here?
Absolutely, yes. So what we have seen as when we move from Kenya to Uganda and Uganda to Tanzania and Tanzania to Zambia, there are different scope in terms of knowing that what kind of culture diversifications are there. So the products are actually the global product because we are solving a global problem, which is basically moving people from here to there, and also ensuring that people are safe when they are moving with us. But at the same time, it is important that we need to know the local market because then you engage more. So it's something which is basically that Oyo and Airbnb has done it. In the past, when they're going to global market, they are actually the global brand, but they are understanding the sentiments of the culture or the country or the regulation and the policies. And that's the way they are tweaking the product to make it fit to fly. That's what we are also doing. So when we started in Kenya, so we found that the drivers are more looking for the loans and savings because they are looking for that kind of product, and we are hearing from drivers a relevance towards to their needs, and we found that this is something we can do, and we have done it, and actually it picked as a product, a huge product success. But in Uganda market it was not the case, and differently we have seen these kind of motion or habitual changes in the customer behavior, and then we found like every market has its own complications and own relevance, and if you understand it, then you can contour it properly as per the need of the market, and then you can also tap the customer potential which is directly going to engage with you as a business. So in contrary, sometimes people say that let's do globalization, which is good because you want to find a common problem which is everywhere, right? And you're solving it from step by step, country by country, city by city. But then you have to be more relevant because then it gives you an edge because you know the people where you're going and you understand why it is important because now customer feel that you are talking their story, and that is mind boggling. And one of the example that I've seen, I was reading somewhere that any company which is coming to India, they want to make something which is laced with Indian culture, so to have that huge market, so that happens, and we have seen that it actually had given us a edge over the international player who are very reluctant and they are not changing and they are not innovating, and so they are not disrupting the market because they are not ready to hear the vocal for local. Yes. So
Got
that's what I
it.
would say that, yeah, you have to make a global product, but you have to put the features which are very much near to locals.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, be cognizant of the local realities and accordingly tailor it, while the core remains like a uniform, consistent experience, which
Yeah,
you.
calibration as per the global
Yes.
problem. Yeah.
So now that's great. So now we're moving to the concluding part of the final part of this discussion. So it will be more of a rapid fire round in the sense that we need to be very crisp in answering those questions. So the first questions there again to each of you, starting with Ashish, right? Share one example from your area of business where you're demonstrating user empathy, right? So while we're building products with great opportunities, great research, right? What is that one thing you and team are looking at really doing for user empathy? And again, empathy is a very loosely used word in day-to-day life, but empathy is one part, is right, which how do you really discover that unsaid, unarticulated problem or a pain point of a user using your product, and really discovering that and solving for that, right? And what is essentially people call as design thinking is
Yeah.
nothing but empathy, right? So, what is that one thing you and team would have done really, and mapping it to user empathy? If you can share that with the audience.
Yeah, I probably would say that, everyone says that we're a tech company, and we are a tech company. But the thing is that we are a tech company empowering people. We are empowering drivers. We are empowering these stakeholders. And if we understand that the tech is basically for the people, and people are moving the entire show, then you understand the actual condition and the motivation and the desire of the people. Then you'll be more relevant in your guidance of what kind of product that you want. What is the relevance of the market? What market is asking for? So we started knowing that we are a tech company, but the tech company means that empowering people. And when you empower people, these people are changing people's life. They are touching people's life. So slowly, gradually, we understood like this is the way that you put yourself in customer shoe and walk for a while, and then say that what they are feeling, and when they are consuming our service, what they actually feel, what kind of relevance they want, that is required to tweak in the product and make it fit to fly. And reality of the fact is that no one is asking to hatch a bird overnight, but something needs to be done because the system is dynamic, right? So we started thinking about in those perspective. We started talking to the customers, to taking the feedback, to generating a database and putting some intelligence there and understanding the behavior and sentiments for the customer, and understanding what they are looking for. So I'll give you an example. When 2020 happened, when the entire global uh, pandemic hit to everyone, and it was an unprecedented change happened, and everyone was actually turmoiled with this kind of change. No one actually expected this. So there was a lot of disorientation. There was a lot of bewilderness. So people are in dilemmas, and so do our customers were. But then we as a customer, sorry, we as a provider asked the customer that how do we make sure that we help you to move to your essential service provider, because they were in dilemma that there would be a curfew hour after 7 p.m., there would be a curfew hour after 9 p.m. What do we do? And we have doctors, those are moving here and there. We have the medical practitioners, they are moving here and there. So how we can move, because there is a curfew. So what had happened, we actually initiated a disaster recovery plan where we involved the government authority and allowed few set of drivers to go and support these customers, and then we found that how the customer is feeling. And what we have done, actually, we have made a lot of scenarios and done a lot of sensitivity analysis to understand the actual customer pain. And that's why we innovated. Rest of the company said, we are not giving any service after 7, and for us, like, our drivers are giving 24 by 7. So that was one of the things that we have achieved. And then second thing, which we also have done, that we work with the drivers, and drivers are very sentiments, so their sentiments move here and there. They are very much vocal about their problems. So understanding the driver exactly what they are looking for, and then solving their problems. One of the example that I've crafted is that saving and loan. Drivers were saying that they are hand to mouth, so they want something where they can save money. And the moment that we have given them a product, it became a jungle fire. The driver community talked to everyone, and that's the way this entire product controlled properly. And we have actually engaged approximately 20% more driver organically. So when you understand your customer, when you hear their problems, when you actually talk to them, and when you do the NPS and understand who's sitting where, you actually decrease your CAC level, investment, your cost of
Right.
acquisition to acquire the customer goes down.
Got
So
it.
that all that I've seen
Yeah.
in the market.
No,
Yeah.
great example again during these times how you mapped a need with user empathy, right? As I said, lending as an example of offering 24 by 7 support, right? And which kind of becomes a new benchmark that, hey,
Sure.
little
Sure.
rides or little cabs is an expectation. They offer 24 by 7 service, which eventually becomes your differentiator. Now,
Sure.
quickly in one line or two lines, Saksham, in the interest of time, because I have one more last question to ask as a rapid fire, that what is that one example you would like to share where you really identified a need due to your mapping of user empathy and then solve for it in your product?
Yeah, so if you take example of RHEO, RHEO is a platform where there is supply and then there is a demand of the content, and this supply of the content comes from the esports player, and esports as a genre has not been well recognized among the parents, right? People do not, I mean, by nature, people, the parents ask their students to basically educate first and then get into the esports or something. So we started recognizing these esports, some of the top esports player, and then helping these parents to understand the future and can give in think they something well in advance in terms of the payment or in terms of the all the resources that they need to start live streaming and to just to get the trust of all these parents as well. So that is something which of
Got it. Okay. So moving on to Anish, one example which you would like to quote.
The content domain was something which was influencer led always, and there were a few individuals who were getting paid heavily. When we started with Mitron, we were very much sure that this is not the way we are going to move forward, and we started with micro entrepreneurship, and that is how we do it. So all the creators are organic into the community. We derive the creators who have the ability, whose contents are engaging, and there are several metrics which come into play. And then we handhold them. We teach them how exactly they can talk to their audience, create contents which are specific to their areas, and that is how we started with communities. So it is always like that with us, and it's like in schools we used to have a teacher is to student ratio. Similarly, at Mitron, we have a creator to a community manager ratio. So they are always talking to them, and that is something which we maintain with them, and that is how we do it. So our idea is that we identify people with raw talent and groom them, and then solve the distribution problem for them essentially.
Got it. And that's a very nice metric to look at. Important that, as you gave an analogy, teacher to student ratio versus creator to community of user ratio, right? And really helping them out and guiding them out. Um, so finally, the last question of our session, again, it's a rapid fire in few words. If you can help answer that, is what is that one piece of advice which you would give to this audience here, which essentially community of developers, product guys, startup founders, is that what is that one most important thing they should keep in mind while building for these mobile first or first time internet users in whatever they are doing to solve different aspects of any problem? Anish, start.
Yeah. So the thing is, understanding of your user is not a one-time process. So you need to understand it always. Be data-oriented. Don't go by gut feels always. So if we start with that, then I think uh, the base would be solid, and then you would be able to handle because situations change, time change. At Mitra also, we have seen different ways in which we are acquiring different kinds of users, but to be able to understand them and differentiate certain outliers and identify your loyal customers and loyal users, you can't just go by gut on what exactly you think is happening onto the platform. Always go with data. So do that as an initial exercise. If we have done that, then I think that understanding of user will not be a task, but it will become a habit for all of us. And if we do that, then I think we would have solved some problems which are there on the application and solved for the users who are actually loyal to the platform.
Great. So essentially, it's a continuous process, and as I said, don't have a gut feel there.
Yep.
Moving on to Saksham, what is that one piece of advice?
So one is like the simplicity in the product. If you just see like which some of the successful products and which has scaled to millions of the users, it's the simple of the simplest product. For example, Truecaller, be it WhatsApp, right? It should just do the job in the least possible number of the steps. Yeah,
Yeah, so keep it simple. That age old adage which goes that whatever you do, keep it simple, right? And it makes me remember that example once upon a time when the researchers went into space and they wanted to write something. Somebody said, we'll invent a pen due to the gravity thing to make it write on space. And somebody says, hey, why can't you use just a pencil? Right? So
yeah.
simplicity is still which holds true even in this age of technology based experiences, which one must not forget. Finally, to Ashish, what is that one piece of advice you would like to leave with the audience here?
I probably would say that I'm very much agreed to the information that Saksham talked about. Like make it simple and powerful, and see that how we can make people effective and productive out of your product, because you know that the product those are making the effectiveness and increase the efficiency of the people are considered to be wonderful products, and those products are popular like Salesforce, Freshdesk, WhatsApp, and all. These are the example. And at the same time, if we bring the entertainment value, because you know that what we do, like 52 weeks in a year, we think about entertainment. So if we make something like Facebook, if we make something like video games, definitely that's a wonderful product and popular product among the community. And then the last but not the least is it's all about money. It's all about saving the time. So if you can save the time, if you can make the customer to make money, I think that it's going to be profound. These are three or four things that I feel.
Yeah, and again, just to summarize, like build productive experiences. How are you able to add value in terms of productivity, be
Yeah,
it economical productivity, be it time productivity, or effort
sure,
productivity.
sure.
Great. I think it was amazing to kind of converse on these areas. And thanks so much once again to each of you, Ashish, Saksham, and Anish, to join us today evening. And again, it's afternoon, I guess, in Kenya, Ashish, and share these valuable insights with the audience here. So thank you once again, and hope to be stay connected going forward as well, and keep working together to build some of these experiences which we talked about.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to you, Harshad.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. And to all our audience and the community who were listening to us for the last few minutes, for the last hour or so. Thanks again for hearing us out. We hope that these have been helpful insights for you as we build for users and make their lives simpler. To share with you all, we are towards the end of day one. We would call it a day here. But as we live, would just want to give you a quick glimpse into what we have lined up for you tomorrow. So we start with highlights from today's day, what all we learned, what all things that we need to keep in mind. Then we start with our first masterclass session along with Harshit from Misho, who will be talking about scaling from 1 to 10, solving hard problems, and how do you build teams and inculcate the same culture that you're building this. This is going to be a very interesting discussion where we'll see the growth journey that Misho went from and how they executed in the right way to be one of the leading players in their category itself. Next, another amazing discussion we are going to be having is between Arvind, who is the founder at Rapido, along with Pratik Podar, principal at Nexus Venture Partners. And the thought process here is how do we look for those opportunities in markets and understand, how it is going to be a disruptive behavior. What Rapido built was truly something that we look forward to and was new in a market like India. So how did they go about it? What were the crazy product innovations that they did and what were the hacks that they worked out is something that we will hear from them. So we really hope to see you all uh, tomorrow and join us as we hear these thoughts. And as we part, we'd love to thank you, our community partners, the product folks, for helping take this initiative to more players in the community and communicating what you feel and having them to reach and attend the event. So, they are building some amazing stuff. Absolutely do check them out. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Bye.